This week, you could take the boy out of the dollar store toy aisle, but you can't take the dollar store toy aisle out of the boy. Let's get into it. Hey, how's it going? Anthony Ferraro here, Create Sci-Fi. Well, had to go to the dollar store this week. The eBay sale, the prop sale that is going to support Starfisher. You guys did fantastic with that. Thank you. We're in the final legs of post-production. And to say thank you, I figured I'd go back to basics. I've been doing a couple videos of, hey, we're fundraising. I know that's not really what you want to see, so I appreciate you staying with me. So I thought, let's do a dollar store blaster, right? And this came out really cool. Basically, just went to the dollar store, grabbed a couple things. I'm a big fan of these saw blade handles. This is a dollar store toy. And you know, I specifically made it a point to just use stuff in my shop. I don't know what you have in your home shop or that your kitchen drawer in your garage. But I wanted to just keep this one sort of simple, low budget, $3.02, because the dollar store is the $1.51 store now. And then let's get back into the subscriber spotlight. Earl, Ray, Cisco. Yeah, look at that. Oh, that makes me happy. That is very cool. Yeah, can't wait to see whatever film he puts this in. I love getting stuff like that. So there's an email for the channel, createscifi@gmail.com. It's in the description. If you're working on stuff inspired by the channel, send it. Or if you just want me to let you know when things are going on a couple times a year, I'll have your email. But check that out. But yeah, dollar store blaster, saw blade handle, just a cheap gun. Should we get into the build? Yeah, let's make this thing. All right, dollar store bag is on the table. It's some familiar friends. The saw blade. Can you imagine actually trying to saw something with that? My goodness. And then the $1.51. I don't even know what that's supposed to be, but it's got the rail and it's got the hole. Again, you know, with props, I talk about this a lot. It's about the silhouettes. It's the looks. And why I like that particular gun is it's got that shroud, I guess it's called, you know, and it's got the rail on the top. So it just, you know, characters running around with that, you don't wonder if that's a gun or not. But it's a toy, so it has a child-size handle. And I just found, like, you know, when I walk around the dollar store, typically what I'm thinking is, what two things can I match together that are not supposed to be matched together? And then, you know, we'll make a new thing. So here, let me just, there's my book. Wow, right at the top. So I want to get a straight line. So I figure, my book's handy. And, you know, this book talks about why I do all this stuff. And it's not a technical filmmaking guide. It's a mindset, right? So moving on. So we got to cut the bottom off here. And typically I just run a piece of tape on there to keep a line straight. You know, you would think you can make a straight line, but who knows? I got safety goggles on there. And, you know, the Dremel tool, prop maker's best friend, I think. You know what I mean? It's kind of a catch-all. But in this case, wasn't deep enough, so I think that is an actual dollar store hacksaw. The stuff I don't show you at the dollar store that I buy sometimes ends up as, you know, like the tools and the support pieces, funny enough. But, you know, never saw that coming, but I'm the dollar store guy, I guess. So that handle just fits nicely. Love the size of it. And because it's the saw blade handle, right, it gives it a different look than a typical gun handle. And that's kind of my attraction to that saw blade that you've seen me use a couple times now, is because it's clearly a handle, but it's not a, you know, a typical gun handle, right? So silhouette. I guess that's the magic word of today's video. Silhouette. And that fits nicely, and it doesn't quite fit, but then it's like, okay, well, it kind of swoops back in the back, swoops back in the back sort of swoops. So we'll try to match that up. And here all I'm doing is, when you're gluing a flat surface to a flat surface, it's very similar, you know, to traditional woodworking. That's not the best thing, right? You want to kind of put a here, you know, like a biscuit or a plug or something for it just to grab onto to give it a better chance to make it. And those I think are just skewers, because I'm going to epoxy and hot glue everything, you know, whatever it takes to mush this all together. So I got my 5-minute epoxy, and I think I've mentioned this before. I like to get this one from the hobby store because then I always have it on hand, right? So it's a 2-part thing. You mix it up as you need it, as opposed to sort of those syringe type one-use ones, but you know, whatever works. And here I'm just globbing it on, and now I'm just gonna sort of load this up with hot glue, and that's gonna do a couple things. It's gonna add some weight to the gun, and then you know, when I put the handle on there with those little nubbins, now it all is gonna stick together. The hot glue is going to form around those nubbins. The epoxy is going to set in 5 minutes. So we should be pretty good. Here, just a little clamp. Whenever you glue, you want a clamp. And typically use as many clamps as you have for this. So I was like, wow, this should be fine. And it was all kind of sliding around on me a little bit, so I had to babysit it. And there it is, and that's good. But, you know, because we're putting two things together, you know, square peg, round hole, we got to fill this up. Now, I said in the beginning, you know, I want to use what I have on hand. So typically with this, I would probably use Bondo, but my Bondo, I'm out of the hardener, right? So that means I would have to get up from my workbench, go to the automotive store or Home Depot, buy the hardener, spend more money that I don't have. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just use the old baking soda and super glue trick. I got a lot of super glue, and I got this box of baking soda. I don't know. I probably had that for 5 years. So what you do is you fill the holes with the baking soda, and then the super glue, and then it turns it into like this crusty paste. Not pretty, but effective, right? So all those holes are filled. The little gap along the bottom. And again, you know, these are like fun hand props that I make. So if this was a hero prop, right, and it was like the main character and this is his gun in the film, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before, then I would be like, okay, I got to suck it up and buy some Bondo and do it, you know, in a more sort of controlled, deliberate way. But for what this is, and then you see the other side there. So progress, right? From afar, that looks fine, but, you know, close up, it's definitely wonky. So we got to address that, and we do that with sandpaper. Dum, boom, boom. Going through the grits. I actually started with 100, which usually I just go straight to 220. 220 is kind of my catch-all, but there's so much globs. And like I said, this is what I signed up for this time. I could have used the Bondo. My life would have been a little easier, but this is what I'm doing. I think I'm on to the 220 now. And even as I'm sanding this, I'm like, okay, well, this is, it's a little wonky, you know what I mean? But you work through it. You push on. We have just stuck two things together. So I bring out the palm sander. That's going to help me just make quick work of, because it was so much buildup on the, with the super glue and the baby powder, or you can use baby powder with the baking soda. And then there's, you know, your typical seams that you want to get rid of. A little quick brush off of the dust that I'm not inhaling. And then now some greeblies. And I have these sliders that I bought for Starfisher for the console. And, you know, these are on hand. And I'm like, got to put a trigger, or else 5 of you are going to be, where's the trigger? And I agree. Needs a trigger. So I'm a trigger man now. So now I'm just, you know, this is a electronics thing. So it's got a little thing on the back that I want to take down. And then back with the 5-minute epoxy. I've never timed it, but it's about 5 minutes. You just want to hold on to it till it gets gooey, and then it'll stick. And you'll see here, I do have a little bit of a hard time with this because I'm blasting through it. Trying to not get glue all over my fingers. Spoiler alert, I get glue all over my fingers, but it's fine. But I'm hoping that this just shows you that I'm just a guy trying to not stick his fingers together. And there you go, it snuck off of there. I'll just pretend that I haven't just glued some DNA from my desk into that trigger now. And moving on, right? A little tidy up. And actually, okay, I talk a lot about the happy accidents. Those sliders, I was just looking in my bin and I was like, oh, this could be a trigger. And now forever, I don't look at that as a bag of sliders. That's a bag of triggers. And because it's not a typical gun trigger, I like that because it's supposed to be a futuristic weapon. So it has like a different look, and happy with that. So here, I got to mask off these holes. I could have, if I was doing Bondo, I probably would have filled those right up with Bondo. But also too, so that's like a flat face, right? So you want to put like a greebly on there. So here I'm just using the masking tape to make a template. Again, what I have on hand is like some styrene. So I cut a little styrene piece out, clean that up. I do the nippers. And I'm just blasting through this because, spoiler alert, this is going to fail. And I'm like, you know what? It just doesn't look that great. But we tried. And maybe that suits your purposes and it could have been fine. But I have like my Evil Ted Greeblies I talk about a lot. I have these resin trays from Evil Ted. When I have extra resin, you pour them off. And I just get so much mileage out of these things. And it was like, I was reluctant to use these because I'm like, well, I've used these before. But it just looked better, right? So, there it is. And next time I won't use these because these were the last two until I pour some more. And what I'm doing here is I'm just toothing up the surfaces because we are going to use epoxy again. And here there's like some kind of like screw in the rail there. And I'm like, you know what? Well, let me just put a hex in there just to add a little value, right? So I toothed up the handle. These just work so nicely on there. So now there's like those, it's like cross hatching, I guess we could call it. And then the glue's gonna go in there, kind of like a shelf kind of thing. And kind of like engraving, I guess, right? When they chisel in the engraving in metal and put in the gold. But I digress. So what I'm going to do here is I got the 5-minute epoxy, and then I just do a couple dots of super glue. And all that super glue is for is to clamp it, basically, right? Because I'm going to do both sides. I'm in the zone right now. I want to keep the train moving. So I don't really want to stop and, put clamps on things. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And I can't even move it there. So I'm like, yeah, I guess that worked. So there it is. Silhouette's looking great. The connection point's a little crunchier than I typically would like. So I'm sanding here because I'm pontificating. I'm wondering, what am I going to do about this? Because it's pretty crunchy. Because I did the baking soda glue thing. I'm like, I could do another course of that, right? I could do that again. Like I said, if I had used Bondo in the first place, it would have been fine. But here, I'm just sort of sanding everything, getting it ready for paint, sort of ignoring that for now. And I think my thought at this point is like, well, if I put a coat of primer on this, it'll give me a better idea of what's working and what's not working. And to reiterate, first day with a new tongue, is, I'm wondering about sort of that gap where the two separate pieces are connected into one. So here I'm very gingerly cleaning it up with some isopropyl. Again, it's so funny, like all this stuff is like, I'm like, oh geez, I don't have any paper towels on hand. So I'll just give it a bath and get the hairdryer out. Perfect. And here I'm just making sure, that's why I like using the isopropyl, is like it flashes off pretty quick. So, if you had washed it with water, you'd have to wait. So there's the adhesion promoter. I get that from the automotive store. And then the black, and that works pretty good. And now I'm starting to see it's not as bad as I thought, but it's still bad, right? So you can see it better there. And it's like, do I do another course, or even that side's worse? But there is another option, right? So I go to my parts bin of model kit parts, and it's like, well, we can add greeblies, right? So that's another option. Again, if this was a hero prop, I would probably use Bondo and keep shaving that and shaping it and do maybe 3 more rounds. But for what this is, I'm like, oh, this will work. And I think, I'm sharing another option with you guys, right? So here I just found a couple pieces. And because they're from like a plane, there is like they're bifurcated, I think that's the word. Like there's a left and a right. So I'm like, yeah, this works out. And again, just sanding off the nips, the parts that are not flat, because I want it to stick to the gun. And I'm just going to polish it off with a little 600, since I do want paint to stick to this, and these don't have primer yet, and the other piece does. So here, and you see I'm sanding there. You notice what you don't see is the gun underneath, right? So that adhesion promoter, the adhesion primer, whatever it's called, works pretty well, right? And I use that sparingly, and I've had that can for like, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 months now. So it's worth the investment. So here I'm just hiding the crimes. It's all smoke and mirrors, right? Don't look here. And then here I'm just taking some files because some of those details in the hand grip got filled up with, I think that's epoxy in there. It's all good. But yeah, right? Smoke and mirrors. It's like, don't look here, that's fine. Right? When we looked at it before, you saw that there was that hole. Now you don't, your eye doesn't go to that, right? And I'm going to do this one gold because, I don't know, because I think the last one was silver. Oh, I know why. So with the silver, right, I remember I stumbled on that technique where I used the water-based oil paint and just put the black over the silver paint, and it was a cool like pewter, and it made it look more metallic. So my thought was like, oh, since this is just a fun build, let me experiment and see if we can do the same thing with gold. But before that step, as I just reminded myself why I painted it gold, I'm going to do the Plasta Dip. You know I like to do that. So I do the Plasta Dip on the handles, and I'm going to do that barrel shroud thing. And I like it on the handles because it's grippy. And then I talk about this a lot. It reflects light differently. You could certainly just paint it with black paint. I just have a thing that I like to do with the Plasta Dip. And I've mentioned this before. I just think because I make film props, it just feels better in the actor's hand. Feels more like a thing, more like an object. And here I'm just taking off all this masking that past me was like, let's just cover this up. Present me is like, God, did you have to put that much tape on there? But what I'm noticing in hindsight is lots of times when I do this kind of masking and stuff, it's always a sort of nail biter of, is the paint going to peel off? And since I've been using that adhesion promoter, it works pretty good. And you see there, just reflects light differently. So here's that hex screw. And what's cool about that is it's just going in non-painting because it's just a hex screw. And hex screws are the most futuristic kind of fasteners that we can come up with on a Harbor Freight run. And there it is. And again, before the weathering, I always say this, you can stop there. So here is the experiment where I'm like, I wonder if I could do the same thing with this as I did on the silver. And right away, I'm like, yeah, this is going to work good. So to recap, if you don't remember, or if you weren't around for the other video when I tried this, it's like when you spray paint something silver, that's why I started getting into the graphite treatments you see a lot on this channel. It just looks like silver spray paint. But what I stumbled on last time is when I use this oil base like black, instead of doing my typical wash, where I just sort of smear the water-based oil paint, it's a tongue twister, on here, it gives it a cool like sheen, and the way that it reflects the light and the way that it works, it does make it look more like metal, right? And then I just use a little burnt Sierra there to give a little rust. And yeah, that looks good. Very happy with that. And then I have this on hand. Just going to do like a dusting of the nicotine spray, which is kind of damps everything down, the color that you think, like an amber. And, you know, if I didn't have this, I wouldn't have done it, but I had it, and I was like, why not? So here, just a little bit with the hairdryer. It has been in the 90s where I live, so I put it out in the back. And there she is. Looks like a blaster. It's like if I stare now at the seam, I can still see a little bit of funny business, but it's smoke and mirrors. If you don't know it, you wouldn't see it. Very cool. That came out really cool. Very happy with that. And yes, it has a trigger. And yes, I like that there's a trigger in there. I have a bag of these slider knobs. I think that makes a good trigger. But yeah, I mean, if I make another one of these using the saw blade handle in this, I guess we're gonna have to build a film around them. So yeah, again, thank you so much for the support for Starfisher. That's well on its way. I'm actually working on a trailer now. Hopefully I'll be sharing that with you soon. The eBay, it's still live. There's still a few things up on there if you want to check it out. You can go over there, and all the money now will go towards festival submissions, and we could really use that help. But should we fire it up? Yeah, let's fire it up. Oh, okay, there it is. Finger on the trigger. Oh, this is sharp, firm, direct. All right, one more. Check out the Patreon. Thank you to all the Patreons. That support really helps. Check out my book. I talk about everything that I do on this channel. It's more of a mindset, not a technical filmmaking guide. But remember, I'm just here to help make sci-fi.
Hey, I'm just the avatar, but you might want to check out this video, maybe that video. For sure, subscribe if you haven't, and check out the merch. Buy some merch, that really helps. But hey, what do I know? I'm just the avatar.